All right. Welcome, everyone, as people start filing in to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Jeremy. I'm one of the training team members, and I will be leading our call today. If we have any questions, I don't believe we had any pre-submitted ones. So if we have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A for us, and we can go ahead and do our best to answer them, take a look, and see what we've got. So I'll give it a few minutes to see if anyone else is gonna load on in here. But go ahead and ask some questions or whatever we got, and we'll start here in a sec. Right. Still haven't seen any questions. I'll go over the kind of the usual intro stuff, but again, please ask away if we have anything we wanted to take a look at today. Um, so, as usual, welcome. We've got a couple things that you should definitely check out. Checking out the Decision Solutions Marketplace, lots of different great little applications and things to try out, and see if there's anything that's interesting to you, because there's a lot of great applications that you can kind of use to um, either get some inspiration for certain builds, if you have something that maybe works similar, or looking at something that might work similar to any one of the application builds on our solutions marketplace, or if one of those is actually exactly what you're looking for, you may be able to get a lot of good information. And so that is something that we can take a look at if we need to, but definitely should check that out. Great things. Decisions support our YouTube channel, Decisions I've been support. Great place is where we post all of our lunch and learns every day, but also a lot of other training content and other videos and things. We've put some step-specific ones, some other content up there. So definitely check those out if you're looking for more information or anything like that. Um, but with that in mind, let's go ahead and start to take a look at some things because we do have a question now from Peter, and we will take a look at what we've got here. So, Peter's question is, I'm interested in active form flows and particularly and partially updating the table on a form using drop-down menus. So, Peter, I'll give you a chance to speak up if you have anything that you'd like to further expand on this while I start to build out some sample stuff to get started looking at this. Okay, get this out. You mentioned drop-down menus, so I guess I'll add a drop-down box. And then you said partially updating a table on a form. What kind of table are you referring to?
The example I'm working on is overly complicated for this, so just anything with active form flows would be helpful. Like in my example, I have kind of data structures that represent time series, but then they're being converted into rows, like a different type of data structure to show up on the table properly. So it's kind of complicated, but just whatever you can show me would be great.
Okay.
I guess the key thing is I want it to trigger a flow that's going to go back and update the some of the data that's going into the table without kind of refreshing it and running the whole original flow.
Okay. Sure. Here, quick static drop down for this, just to, and then what kind of a control are you trying to change on the form? Like, do you know what what form controller you're using to mess with? Just so I can get it at least closer. It doesn't have to be like perfectly specific.
I guess there's a data grid.
An advanced data grid.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. Take a look at active form flows, see what kind of things we can do here. There we go. All right, so the first main thing about active form flows that's going to be important to note is just all of your form data, right? You've got all this stuff available to you that you can utilize in order to find, any of the information you're looking for, right? So I have that drop down that I placed there, as well as the label for it, right? And that I have the ability to, check whether or not it's enabled or visible if I care about that for some reason, but also, the actual items that I'm selecting, right? Selected item would be the thing that I'm picking in a drop down. You could also, mess with other things, but typically, right, if we're basing this off of that drop down, we're probably looking at whatever some user selected. So then we can check that and run it against something else, right? Check what they selected, and maybe if what they selected equals example one, I'm going to do something here. If what they selected is example two, I'm going to do something here, right? So we're kind of like, you have to think about, well, what am I going to actually, what do I care about with this? And am I going to route it with something? There's that. We also have, right, other things, other controls that you may have. If you care about the buttons, we got the advanced data grid, right? And the advanced data grid will have its information, any issues in the enabled and stuff, but also the information specifically related to whatever data type or information your data grid is relying on, right? So I grabbed a case entity here that I just had on this project as an example. And so then I have all of the data stuff, anything, directly related to that if I want to change here. So if I want to use this to, do something with a specific property of this item here that's going to be in that data grid, that's what I can kind of like utilize it for. Um, and so then from there, just kind of depends on use case, what you're trying to do. If you're trying to make it, you know, change different things or make adjustments to what's appearing in that table based on what someone selects, then, you have, if it's just a couple different options, maybe a rule you can place here to check. You could always set a truth table if you have a lot of different options and you want different outcomes based on that. If you have different pathways that you want to use, and you're just using a string for a dropdown, for example, a string match step might be useful. This is more, I guess, better if you have like a static list, right? The string match, you can just have it set to specific matches. So I think when I built this, I had example one, example two, and example three. And then I can input the selected item from that combo box, and now it'll run down this path, each path depending on which item someone selected in that dropdown, right? And then from there, I can run through, and you said, you want it to update data in your data grid. Well, I can easily just do that. I'm just going to use a very like basic example, but right? Anytime I'm trying to, deal with something, in this case, right, if it goes down this path, I want to update the data with this thing. And you can simply use, change value. If you want to change value from something on your form in your advanced data grid, and then grab something from there. You also have your set control value steps. These are great things too if you want to change something or set some kind of value in a form control. So if I have something here and I want to actually set the data on some, anything like this, then I can do that here as well. With advanced data grids, I'm not as familiar with them. I haven't done a ton with advanced data grids to know what you can do with them. I guess if I just so if I pick the advanced data grid, and then here's the actual like data, right, that I want to set the control value to, I can definitely do that and grab um, items. It's going to expect a list of that specific thing, so I guess I have to make that if I don't want to change it for this particular example. Um, I'd have to change my create data here. Oops, to actually be that data type. And if, obviously, like create data, I'm kind of using this as just a poor example of just kind of like basic, oh, here's some random data. Random data, but obviously we would want this to come from something, and it could come from your form. It could come from like fetch entities. I could fetch something if I had something in the database to grab from. If I have something already created, I could be adding some data to my information that I'm pulling from, whatever that is. I can grab from that. And then I can select from flow and just grab from anything that I've created in this. So I have this updated uh, value that I use with my create data. So maybe if it goes down this path, I want to update it with this information, and now this will set the control value of that item um, to be with that. If I want to gather more information, if I want to get new data, we always have, if you have something in a database, you can fetch something first, and that fetch that data and grab it. If you have something input in your form, you can utilize that here as well. If I don't actually have anything yet, but I can create something real quick just so I can see the example of that. So like let's say I just had a string set as an input on this form. I can use those inputs in my active form flows as well, which can be important also. So if I go back to, something where I can select from flow, you'll see in in addition to form data, this is all the data that's currently on your form. We've got form input data. This is the data that's being input or sent into your form. And so you can say now that I've actually created it, this wasn't there before, but now that I've created it, I have example input data. So if I have something being input into my form, I can use that in an active form flow as well. So then I can utilize that in any way that I need to. And that's where sometimes you have to kind of consider, well, like, what is your ultimate goal here to where you want to get your information from? Because something that you always want to consider when you're building something like this is your active form flows are going to be running potentially a few times. Maybe not, it's not always guaranteed to be running once, depending on how you're triggering it, right? If the trigger is based on a drop down, theoretically someone could just click on a drop down and constantly change the options in the drop down. And if they're doing that and I have a fetch entities inside this active form flow, it's going to have to run that fetch every single time that active form flow gets triggered. If it's something though that you know you're going to use across a bunch of active form flows, then maybe you want to fetch before this form and have that set as an input on your form here with whatever it's fetching going straight into this form. So now everything on this form can use the thing that's being fetched. But if it's also something that needs to be, updated live, maybe that will kind of change how you kind of organize it. Um, so yeah, there's a little definitely a lot to it, and obviously, in a little bit more of a broad setting, maybe a little difficult to get like super specific. But obviously, the set control value is really how you're going to change some kind of value within something based on that data. And like you mentioned in your question about like updating any data on the table. If that's the case, if you need to update, like this is just going to set it. It's going to change whatever's there, just set whatever's there to be that information. If you specifically want to update it, then you also just want to make sure that whatever you have leading up to this is including the data that's previously there. Like this is a list of all of these case entities, and maybe I want to add a new one. So then I can, build an array here or join some arrays and have the original one come from that first list, the original list, and then add an additional one that'll have all of my new information that I want to update it with. Then I can simply combine those two things together and then still set it to contain whatever the previous information is, but also I need the new information. Um, and then again, to reiterate, right, the beginning is kind of how you're routing it based on what someone selects, right? I just use string match because that uh, is the kind of the case that I had with what I had written there first, because I just created a couple different strings and I can check and say, hey, well, if it's a static string, based on what each of these strings are, I want it to go down these different pathways. If you don't care about different pathways and you just want maybe to know what they selected and to use that, then probably a truth table would work pretty well, because then that you can just, check based on what they selected and have it output that data and then send that data out somewhere. There's definitely a lot of different ways to kind of do that original assessment. I know like the most basic ones, especially that we talk about in training, is just simply, running it into a rule that's going to check, oh, does the string equal this? If yes, go down this path. If no, go down a different path. Stuff like that. Those tend to be like the most common basic um, uh, active form flow like options where users may say, okay, go down one path to set a validation or clear a validation or whatever. And again, it's kind of just depends on your use case. But like, oh, here, if I just want to check the form data's drop down selected item and check if that selected item is one of the possible, like one specific possible result. Instead of checking for every result and having paths for separate ones, maybe I only care about one. And if the user selected example one from the drop down, then I want to create this new data and update it with my set control value. And if a user selected any of the other examples from my drop down, I just want to not make any changes and continue it down that pathway. That's just another alternative. A lot of different ways you can think about it. Really just kind of expands and opens up based on your use case and how exactly you want to do it. Um, Definitely a lot of playing around with it to get it to work just right. But active form flows can definitely be pretty powerful tools to, trigger a lot of that information gathering and figure out exactly what you want with that. Hopefully that at least gives you a little bit of direction. If there's anything else you want me to talk to or, take a closer look at, just let me know. It still looks like we still don't have any questions. So if anyone else has questions, please feel free to post them and we'd be happy to help. But otherwise, Peter, if you have anything additional, we'll do that before we move on. Okay. Well then, uh, if nothing else, we'll move on. Manal has your hand raised, so I'll give you the opportunity to talk. And you have a question? Something we can take a look at?
Hey, Jeremy. I just had a quick question. If it takes a business users just to ask me, so I was just wondering if it is a possibility. We have a lot of data repeaters, right? And then on
Hmm.
the data repeaters, we have a checkbox where they usually just check like, oh, this record is active. Um, and then we sometimes have like over 300 records in a data repeater. But what happens is like they have to usually search for that one active line in that data repeater. So they were wondering if there is ever a chance where if that checkbox is selected, the row turns green or like it can be colored. I know we can do that in a report. Do you know if there's a easier way to do this in a data repeater or even if it is possible?
Hmm. I would think yes, um, initially, but I'd have to take a actual look at this and see if I can create one to show that. Oh, my immediate thought, since we're already talking about active form flows, is to kind of look at some kind of active form flow option. Um, with a trigger being that checkbox, right? Let's just say I have right a checkbox in here, right, to check if something is active. Then I might be able to create an active form flow based on like the value of this checkbox. I'm not sure if we can change the background from this or not. That would be my first guess. Right? Because the active form flow would allow us to have it trigger based on any time someone checks that box, or anything like that. And then I can just have a rule in the beginning of this active form flow that would just check if the value in that checkbox is true or not. If decisions will load on me. I swear, decisions just likes to run very slow every time I'm running lunch and learn. I could work on a project all day and have zero issues, but as soon as I'm sharing my screen on Zoom, it decides it does not like it.
Jeremy, quick question. Is this version
Yeah,
9?
it is version 9,
Okay,
yes.
okay, gotcha. So I was looking at those things like it looks like a ladybird on the top, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I don't have it, but that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they replace a lot of the words, like the specific words. Like debug is now just an actual picture of a bug.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha.
Um, okay. Yeah, so we have like the is true rule, but I'm not sure if we can just change the background of a form part. I don't know if that can be changed actually. There. So I could simply just run a rule to check and say, hey, what is the value there? Is it true or false? Good on the pathway. But now the question is, can I actually do something with that? And while this is loading, Kiki, I do see your question. I'll try to see if I can get this question answered for Manal first, and then we'll get to your questions soon, hopefully. Okay. Yeah, I don't think any of like our main things here can just directly change something in the form like that. Yeah, form data, but form data just is based on the items that we have in the form. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything outright. So my thought here, and I think also VT did also post, and I was thinking about this as well. CSS is definitely an option, because you can use like a runtime CSS to change or anything based on a selection, and just say based on this selection, you can have the CSS get changed. So like you can actually right here under style, you can actually have CSS come from something and be based off of this checkbox and say, hey, let me change the CSS here. Um, and if you have, CSS class, even if it's just focused on the color in the background, or anything else specific that you want to look for, so um, you can utilize that. If you want to try to mess a little bit with CSS, or if you have anyone that knows about CSS, you can definitely do that. That should allow you to change the CSS file based on whether that's checked or not, to change the background. Let's see what he's also adding a couple other things, so let me check that as well. He says on a data repeater, there's an indicator that can be set to some color.
Yeah, I use that, but I think it only does like the first one is always highlighted, the indicator. If you close it
Hmm.
and then you go to your main form, it does have it. Yeah, I try to use it. Where is it? I think, well, I have it. It should be on the top for me at least. Doesn't show you. That's
Might
weird.
be, it could be a version difference. Are you on version 8 or version
Ye-
9? You're
I'm
on
on
version
version
8.
8.
Yeah, it could maybe be that.
Yeah, because when I do that, it just like, for example, whatever, what is the first line, it just highlights that and then just the side of it. Because sometimes we have over 300 records in the data repeater and it's getting really complicated for the users just to go through each line and see, oh, which one is actually active.
Right. There we go. Selector type visual indicator. Um, yeah, doesn't look like there's a way to like change that based on. Oh, that the visual indicator is based on selection. That changes whether or not you have something selected or not, not necessarily the checkbox, I believe. And you can like highlight specific rows. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't look like there's a way for that to specifically be based on active form flow, unless for some reason that's an option now that I have a data repeater here. But my guess is that it's not the case. Yeah, like you can change whether it's enabled. You can look at those checkboxes, but it doesn't look like that's like an actual item that you can adjust from here. So, yeah, I don't think that's an option. And like you're kind of saying, it doesn't look like it was working for you anyway. Yeah, my best guess then would be uh, either you can do CSS, have some kind of CSS written that will uh, change that background, and then you can use the runtime CSS option to change the background based on that data, um, and have it, appear differently, whether or not it's checked. That's option one. The other option VT did mention as well in the chat that if you have a small JavaScript or something on the data repeater that can set the background based on the checkbox ID. But yeah, so those would definitely require a little bit of um, knowledge in some of the other kind of outside things. Not necessarily just being able to do it in decisions. You'd have to kind of do the CSS thing or some JavaScript to be able to get, I think, as specific as you're looking for.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'll try that. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Yeah. All right. And Kiki Chow has a question about matrices stuff. Okay. That question is there a step that can output the content of a matrix? Jared helped me last time to find the step to output content of rules tables. Um, but is there an equivalent for a matrix? Let's take a look. My guess, I mean, I would assume there would be something very similar. But let me take a look here. What version are you using, by the way? So I can make sure that
Version 9,
version
it's,
9. Okay,
yeah.
perfect. I just know there's a big difference between version 8 and 9 when we're looking at internal services. So I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm in the right spot. Decisions. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna check internal services then first, since there is an internal service for the one that you found. Maybe there will be a similar one. Okay, so you're looking for the content of a matrix. So it might be like one of these. We got like there's a couple different matrix related ones here that I can see in our internal services stuff.
Yep, I think
So
I tried with a few, but it doesn't work because it doesn't like take a matrix ID as an input. It's taking like the debug session ID or some other session ID, not the matrix ID.
got it. I mean, these ones do take in a matrix ID, but they also might not be doing, they're just running the actual matrix or getting inputs on the matrix. Doesn't look like they would do anything specific with an output. It looks like these are just run the matrix rule for you. So that's execution service. Then this is the one that you were probably talking about. Debug. Maybe it's under a different name. Maybe similar to how truth table is considered rule table. Right, because what you mentioned was open and get all entities
Yes.
that solved your solution last time.
Yes.
Have you by chance just tried to see if a matrix ID would work in this and give you the same results?
I think I tried and it gives me an exception.
I don't see anything that sticks out. Let me just try asking, seeing if there's someone here that can help me. Unless anyone else that's currently on the call has a guess.
I do have a guess on this. Can we go to the matrix edit session service?
Matrix.
In this, yeah,
Yep,
we're actually going to
accidentally
create,
interrupted.
yeah, we're going to create two of these steps. And they're both going to use the same service.
This one?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Yep. And yeah, let's get two of them. They're going to use the same service, but different methods.
I don't know why I'm scrolling. I could just search.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the first one is going to be start edit session near the bottom.
session.
And you just got to put in the matrix rule ID, and this method is going to be get all entities. Yeah. See if this works. Not 100% sure.
Create a matrix rule real quick because I do not have any right now. Let's see if this does it.
Can you see your defined number range from this? Or not in range?
Yeah, there's number range here. That's the output that it went down because it didn't actually have anything.
I think you put like from 1 to 10
Right.
or the horizontal
I don't think it actually
axis.
said it.
I think you put the name as like number range test.
Yeah, number range is 2 is the uh, vertical one. Yeah, there's number
Oh
range
yeah,
text.
here. And where's the defined range?
I don't think it actually specifically points that out. I'm not noticing it at least. It's got like the name, right? That's the name that I gave it of that specific range. I don't actually see the
Oh,
range
so is there a
provided.
way that it can output like the rules that I set for the matrix? That's what I need. Like I
Right.
want to get back what I have set.
Are you so let me ask this. Are you trying to get that to use in the flow? Or are you trying to like report on it?
So there's just a use case that we want to output the content of matrix and root table. So it might be like an API surface, or like we just want the output. So we know that what's the criteria set in the root table or the matrix that we used to define the rules.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so what we want is like both the input and the output. So from that we can like maybe recreate the rule somewhere else with that
Hmm.
data.
Yeah, I don't didn't look like it actually went through. It, no, I fixed that. Change anything. As the considers it a step name, description, the names of the paths. I don't think this quite gives it to us. Doesn't quite give us the actual range part. The specifics of the rule, just the name of the rule that we gave it. I don't see that appearing anywhere else.
So is there another method that can do that, or it's just not supported right now?
It's I mean, I'm sure that it's somewhere. Um, because these internal services steps have a lot to them. Sometimes just depending on what exactly you're looking for, you have to dig deep. Um, my best guess at the moment is that it's one of those kinds of things. Um,
Okay.
uh, VT says you'll need to fetch intersection entities as well. Like that? Maybe it may be related to that. I can definitely poke around a little bit more and maybe ask someone if they know the specifics of exactly what that is. Um, or like exactly what we need to grab the right thing. Because I'm sure there's a method here that it is. It just might take a little bit of trial and error to get, you know, the exact specific method that it needs. Because there's a lot of stuff in these, and sometimes it's
Yes. Yeah.
tough to find the actual specific of it. I can take a little look, like a little bit longer look through this after lunch and learn today, and maybe send you if I find what the actual specific pathway that you're looking for is. Because I'm sure it's there somewhere, it just might not be um as clear
Yep.
exactly what we need here.
Sure. Yeah. Please send me if you find the way. And yeah, thank you so much.
Mhm. All right, I'll take a closer look at that in a little while. Are there any other additional questions? If you look at what is created with matrix rule, there are two hidden entities, top and left. Yeah, I'll poke around with that a little bit and try to figure it out. Any other questions from anyone? We'll end it. Otherwise, we'll end it for today. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone that asked questions. Thanks for chiming in as well, VT and uh, VT and Jeremy chimed in with a couple things throughout the day today as well. So thank you for that. Thank you, Greg, for joining in as well. With that, we will end. We still got a couple of days this week with Gregory and Jared leading our calls. So we will see you all the rest of this week. Thanks for joining.